The desert world of Rinmar always looked quiet from a distance. From above, it stretched like a sea of gold and rust, endless and empty. But Ethan Hale knew better. The planet wasn't silent. It just hid its noise under the wind. The wind here always carried something: sand, static, broken metal, or echoes of old battles that no one bothered to clean up. Ethan walked across the dunes with his scanner in hand, wishing it would stop malfunctioning every time the wind pushed hard. He had been wandering for weeks now, repairing ships for travelers and fixing scrap for merchants barely willing to pay. He didn't stay anywhere long. He didn't know how anymore. After the war, he felt like someone had unplugged every piece of him and plugged them back wrong. But today, his scanner caught something strange, a distress signal, weak, almost lost in the sandstorm ahead. Most people would ignore such a signal out here. It usually meant death or trouble. But Ethan, with all his broken pieces, still had one part that refused to rust. He couldn't ignore someone in danger. His boots sank into the sand as he climbed a ridge. The sky darkened as storm clouds gathered. He forced himself to move faster. If someone was alive out there, the storm would finish them off before nightfall. From the top of the ridge, he saw it, a sleek silver curve buried in sand. Not human. Not cargo junk. A Valari StarCraft. Their ships looked like art carved from moonlight. Even damaged, it looked beautiful. But beauty didn't hide the fact that half the hull was torn. The impact trail ran far back across the dunes. Someone had crashed hard. Ethan moved quickly down the slope. Sparks jumped from broken panels. Blue wires spilled out like veins from a wounded animal. The ship thrummed weakly, fighting to stay alive. Then he saw her lying beside the hull, a Valari woman. Her armor was cracked, glowing faintly underneath like starlight trapped under glass. Her long, pale blue hair lay across the sand, moving slightly with each weak breath she took. Ethan dropped to his knees beside her and checked her pulse. Alive. Too close to fading, but alive. "Hang on," he muttered, though she couldn't hear him. "You're not dying today." He felt ridiculous talking to someone unconscious. But silence felt wrong. The wind pushed harder, and sand began swirling around them. Ethan looked at the darkening sky. A storm was almost here. If it swallowed the ship, no one would find it again. He lifted the woman carefully. She weighed less than a human would, but there was still a delicate heaviness to her, like holding something meant to break if handled wrong. Her armor hummed slightly as if reacting to his touch. He carried her through the broken hatch into the StarCraft. Inside, dim lights flickered. Shattered screens hung from the ceiling. Ethan laid her on a small, collapsible bunk that looked barely usable. She moved slightly, her eyes half opening. For a moment, her silver gaze met his. Confused and weak. "You, human," she whispered. "That's what my paperwork says," he answered softly. She tried to say something else but slipped back into unconsciousness. He covered her with a thermal cloth, then turned toward the engine core. He didn't have time to waste. Repairing a Valari ship was like trying to fix a poem with a wrench. Everything was delicate, curved, and connected in ways human ships didn't understand. But Ethan wasn't new to this. He had repaired every kind of craft during the war, even ones he wasn't supposed to touch. Working soothed him. It gave him a purpose he didn't get from talking to anyone. He patched torn cables, sealed cracked energy lines, and replaced damaged couplers with emergency parts from his bag. He crawled under panels and climbed through narrow access tunnels. The ship groaned and hummed under his hands, slowly coming back to life. After nearly an hour of repairs, the lights brightened. Airflow systems restarted. Basic power returned. He leaned back, wiped sweat from his face, and sighed. Not bad for someone who barely slept. A voice behind him spoke, soft but clear. "You saved me." Ethan turned. The Valari woman was awake now, sitting slowly on the bunk. Her hair glowed faintly in the dim light. Her silver eyes watched him with cautious wonder. "You're feeling better," he said. "I should not be alive," she whispered. "My ship was failing. I was unconscious. And yet, you helped." Even though you had no reason to, Ethan shrugged. Didn't need a reason. Her gaze softened. Valari ships are difficult. Humans cannot repair them. I like proving things wrong. She tried to stand but winced as pain shot through her abdomen. Ethan rushed forward, steadying her with gentle hands. She froze at his touch but didn't pull away. Her fingers rested lightly on his arm. You are kind, she said quietly. Kind, but also hurting. Ethan's breath caught. He didn't expect her to read him that easily. You don't know me. No, she said. But I can feel something in you. A wound. Old, but still open. He looked away, uncomfortable. This isn't about me. She studied him with soft eyes, and something in her expression made his chest tighten. What is your name? She asked. Ethan Hale. I am Lyra, she said. Navigator of the Arhelion. Or what remains of it? He glanced at the broken hull. I've seen worse ships survive. Lyra slowly smiled. Only because someone like you gave them hope. Thunder rolled outside. The storm crashed into the side of the StarCraft, shaking it violently. Lyra grabbed Ethan's arm again. Startled, he placed a steady hand on her back, keeping her balanced as the ship trembled. It's only wind, he said. The repairs will hold. She looked up at him, her eyes full of trust that surprised him. You speak as if you know storms well. More than I want to. Another silence formed. This one, softer. Calmer. Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years, a sense that someone was seeing him instead of looking through him. Lyra placed a hand over her chest. My heart feels heavy, but not because of pain. Because I owe you a debt I do not know how to repay. I'm not here for a reward. Then why are you here, Ethan Hale? He hesitated. No one had asked him that in a long time. He had no clean answer, only a truth he barely understood. Because you were alone, he said quietly, and I know what that feels like. Lyra didn't speak, but her eyes softened with deep understanding. She didn't know his past, but she saw enough to know he wasn't lying. She reached out gently, touching the place on his arm where his old scars showed through his sleeve. Her fingers were warm, delicate. You repaired my ship, she said softly, but maybe one day I can repair something in you. Ethan's throat tightened. He almost laughed at how impossible that sounded. But something in Lyra's voice didn't feel like empty kindness. It felt sincere. The storm howled like a beast outside. Sand slammed against the hull. The ship rattled, but the power systems Ethan repaired held strong. Lyra moved closer to him, steadying herself as the ship rocked again. He placed his hand near her shoulder without thinking, ready to keep her from falling. You are different from other humans I have met, she said softly. They speak with noise. You speak with truth. I'm not good at talking, he muttered. Then you are better at honesty than most. Ethan almost smiled. You should rest. Your body needs it, only if you stay nearby, she whispered before she could stop herself. He didn't tease her for it, didn't question it. He simply nodded. I'll be here. Lyra lay back on the bunk. She watched Ethan as he returned to checking the stabilizers. The soft glow of the ship's lights reflected off him, and she realized something unexpected. The human who saved her looked worn, tired, scarred, yet he repaired everything he touched with gentleness she didn't understand. And Ethan, though he didn't say it, felt something shift inside him. Lyra's presence was calm, warm, familiar, in a way he couldn't explain, like he had been wandering for years and found something he didn't know he missed. The storm raged for hours. Ethan worked. Lyra rested. And somewhere between the echoes of the wind and the hum of the engines, the loneliness in Ethan's chest grew quieter. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't drifting alone. Something new had begun. Something fragile. Something promising. And neither of them would ever be the same again. The storm lasted through the night, shaking the damaged StarCraft again and again. But Ethan worked without stopping. Sparks danced across the panels as he repaired the inner circuits, checking each line of energy with practiced eyes. Lyra watched him from the bunk, her strength slowly returning. Even though her body ached, She felt safer than she expected to feel in a crashed ship on a lonely desert world. Ethan kept working until his hands trembled from exhaustion. When he finally stepped back, the engine chamber glowed with steady blue lines. Valari tech was complicated, but Ethan understood machines better than he understood most people. Machines made sense. They responded when you fixed them. They healed when you treated them right. He turned to Lyra. Basic power is stable now. Navigation is still broken though. I'll need a few more hours. Lyra sat up straighter, her silver hair catching the soft blue light. You have done more in one night than most trained engineers can do in a day. Just keeping busy, Ethan said, though his voice carried a tired edge. Lyra noticed the dark circles beneath his eyes. She didn't know everything about him yet, but she knew he carried something heavy inside. She had seen that look before in soldiers and refugees during the Valari border conflicts, people who had survived but left pieces of themselves behind. She stood carefully and took a few steps forward, using the wall to steady herself. Ethan turned quickly, ready to help her, but she raised a hand gently. I am fine. I only need to move. He stepped back, but he still watched her closely. Lyra approached the engine and studied the repairs. The wires were neatly aligned, the stabilizers patched, the energy converter reinforced with metal scraps Ethan had shaped by hand. You repaired this without any Valari guidance? She asked softly. I adapted human tech to match the design, he said. Everything talks if you listen long enough. Lyra looked at him with quiet respect. You are not just a mechanic. Ethan didn't reply. He picked up his tools and began adjusting another panel, pretending not to hear the weight in her words. Lyra stepped closer. Ethan, she said gently. You saved things that should have been lost. He paused for a moment but kept working. Lyra saw his shoulders tense. She realized she had touched something personal again, something he didn't like to show. She wanted to apologize, but decided not to. Instead, she sat beside him. For a long while they worked together, Ethan repairing, Lyra offering small suggestions based on her knowledge of Valari systems. The rhythm was calm, almost peaceful, despite the storm outside. She found his presence comforting, and he found her voice steadying. Eventually, the storm faded. Light filtered through cracks in the hull as dawn arrived, painting the metal in warm gold. Ethan stepped outside briefly to check external damage. Lyra followed him slowly, wanting to feel the air again. The desert was quiet now. The dunes had shifted. The sky stretched wide and blue, and the air smelled fresh. Lyra took a deep breath, closing her eyes. When she opened them, Ethan was watching her with a small, unintentional smile. You look better, he said. I feel better, she replied, because you stayed. Ethan shrugged lightly. You needed help, Lyra tilted her head. But you also needed something, even if you don't see it yet. Ethan didn't answer. He walked toward the broken thruster, inspecting the outer hull. Lyra followed more slowly, trying to understand him. Humans were not so different from Valari, but Ethan had a quiet sadness she couldn't ignore. A metallic sound echoed nearby, making Ethan stiffen. He motioned for Lyra to stay behind him. From behind a dune, 3 small scavenger drones appeared. Their red sensors flickered as they approached. Ethan frowned. Raiders must have released them. They search for valuable parts. Lyra stepped closer. They will take everything, even your tools. And your StarCraft if they can, Ethan added. The drones circled them, scanning the area. They weren't dangerous on their own, but they sent location data to raiders who were far less friendly. Ethan grabbed a metal pipe from the sand and knocked the nearest drone down. It sparked and short-circuited. The other 2 attempted to flee, but Lyra tapped her wrist panel and released a pulse of blue light that disabled their sensors. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Useful trick. My armor can disarm small threats, she explained, but only when it's charged. And you repaired the power line that allowed me to use it. Ethan smirked. You're welcome, but inside, worry grew. If drones had reached them, raiders might soon follow. He didn't want Lyra facing them in her condition. They returned inside the ship and continued working faster. Ethan connected the final stabilizer, and Lyra rebooted the core. A soft vibration filled the Arhelion. Lights brightened. Panels smoothed out. Energy flowed through the vessel like blood through veins. Lyra's eyes widened with relief. It's alive again. Alive enough to fly? Ethan asked. Not yet, she said. The star drive matrix is damaged. Without it, we cannot leave the planet. Ethan nodded slowly. Show me. Lyra guided him to the heart of the ship. The star drive chamber was a circular room filled with glowing rings, but the central ring was cracked. Blue fluid leaked from its core, reflecting the light with a strange, shimmering glow. This is star drive essence, Lyra explained. The core that allows the ship to jump between star lines. It is extremely sensitive. Ethan crouched, studying the crack. Can it be repaired? Yes, she said. But only with bonding metal from Valari Tech. We do not have any here. Ethan's mind worked quickly. What about the wreckage outside? Anything salvageable from your wing? Lyra shook her head. The parts shattered on impact. They are too damaged. Ethan breathed in deeply. Then we need to find another Valari ship. Lyra's eyes widened. There is no Valari presence on this planet, but other travelers might have passed through, Ethan said. Old crash sites, hidden ruins, black market traders. Someone must have had Valari equipment at some point. Lyra watched him closely. You would go search for it? Alone? In this desert? Ethan didn't hesitate. If that's what it takes. Lyra's gaze softened again, that quiet emotion returning. You risk so much for someone you just met. Ethan stood and wiped dust from his hands. You were in trouble. That's reason enough. But Lyra didn't believe it was only that. She sensed something deeper, a desire to help, because helping others kept him from collapsing under his own shadows. She took a slow step closer. Ethan, you do not have to carry everything alone. He looked at her, surprised by her words. I'm not. You are, she said gently. I can see it. Even when you smile, your eyes look like they are still searching for something that is missing. Ethan opened his mouth to respond but didn't know what to say. He turned away, pretending to focus on a loose wire. But Lyra stepped closer. Her voice calm. You helped me when I was helpless, she said. Let me help you now. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. No one had said something like that to him in years. He wasn't used to anyone looking at him long enough to notice what he felt inside. Lyra, he said quietly. You don't even know me. She shook her head. I know enough. You fix things. But who fixes you? He looked down. The desert wind whispered through the cracked door. For a moment, he felt exposed in a way he didn't expect. Lyra's words touched places he thought he had locked away forever, but before he could answer, the ship alarm buzzed softly. Movement detected. Ethan and Lyra turned toward the screen. A group of raiders, speeders kicking up sand, heading straight toward their location. Ethan's voice hardened. They must have followed the drones. Lyra touched the screen. They have weapons. If they board the ship, they will strip everything. They will not care who gets hurt. Ethan moved quickly, checking the outer bolts. Then we fix the star drive faster. Lyra shook her head. It cannot be repaired in minutes. Ethan grabbed his backpack, slinging it over his shoulder. Then, I go out there and buy us time. Lyra's eyes widened in alarm. No, you cannot face them alone. I'm not planning to win, Ethan said. Just delay them. Lyra stepped in front of him, her hand on his arm. Ethan, if you go out there, you might not return. He looked at her. And for the first time, she saw fear not for himself, but for her. You need to survive, he said softly. You need to get out of here. You're a navigator, you have a place in the stars. I'm just a wanderer. Lyra shook her head firmly. You are not just anything. And I do not want to lose the person who saved my life. Ethan froze. Those words held a warmth he had not felt in years. He didn't know how to respond. He didn't know if he deserved that kind of trust. But the raiders were getting closer. He stepped back, lifting his tools like makeshift weapons. "I'll be careful." Lyra moved in front of him again, refusing to let him leave. Her voice trembled slightly. Not from fear, but from something deeper. "Ethan, I cannot let you face danger alone. Not after everything you have done for me." He met her eyes. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Outside, the sound of engines grew louder. Finally, Lyra spoke in a soft but firm voice. "If you fight for me, then I will fight with you." Ethan didn't expect that. He didn't expect her to stand beside him when she was still recovering. But Lyra's determination was clear. He saw strength in her that went far beyond her injuries. He breathed out slowly. "All right, we face them together." Lyra nodded, her silver eyes glowing with resolve. Outside, the raiders closed in, unaware that the two people inside the broken StarCraft were no longer just survivors. They were becoming something stronger, and this battle would change everything between them. The storm did not stop for almost an entire day. The StarCraft Arhelion shook again and again under the heavy winds, but Ethan's repairs held strong. The lights inside flickered sometimes, yet the power core remained stable enough to keep the systems warm. Lyra sat near the bunk, wrapped in a metallic thermal cloth the ship generated automatically for injured crew members. Her body was recovering, but she still felt weak. Her gaze often drifted toward the man working tirelessly near the engine chamber. Ethan knelt on the floor, half inside an open panel, fixing a cluster of delicate Valari conduits. The glowing cables reflected off his face. Even though he looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, a slight tremble in his hands, his movements stayed steady and patient. Lyra found herself studying him again and again. Humans were known across the galaxy for their adaptability, but she had never seen someone like him. He worked with the focus of a trained engineer but carried the quiet pain of a man who had lost too much. After hours of silence, she finally spoke. "Your knowledge. How did you learn Valari systems?" Ethan leaned back, wiped sweat from his forehead, and answered without looking at her. "During the war, I got assigned to a universal repair team. We studied all kinds of tech, human, alien, whatever we could get our hands on. I liked learning. Machines made sense to me." Lyra listened closely to the slight sadness in his voice. "But the war ended years ago." "Yeah," he said softly. "But its damage didn't." She frowned gently, sensing he did not want to dwell on the past. She decided to change the direction. "Your repairs are beautiful. You treat the ship like it is alive." Ethan gave a small smile. "Machines are easier than people. They break, but at least you can see where." Lyra lowered her eyes, hearing the truth inside his words. "Some people do not show their broken parts," she said quietly. Ethan finally turned toward her, surprised by the softness of her tone. She was looking down, her hands resting on her knees. Her silver eyes reflected a quiet sadness that matched his own. "What about you?" he asked gently. "You seem like you're carrying things too." Lyra inhaled slowly. "I was traveling alone on a diplomatic mission. My crew stayed behind on another planet. I insisted on coming by myself." She paused, trying to steady her voice. "I wanted to prove something." "To who?" "To my council. To myself. I wanted them to stop seeing me as someone fragile." She clenched her hands slightly. "My ship failed. I crashed. I only survived because you found me." Ethan shook his head. "Everyone makes mistakes. Even the best ships break. Even the strongest people fall." Her eyes lifted to meet his. "Do you believe that?" He remained quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, because I've fallen too." Lyra's gaze softened. She had many questions about his past, but she could see that Ethan was not ready to open that door fully. Not yet. She did not push him. Instead, she whispered, "Thank you for saving me. Truly." He looked away quickly, almost shy. "Anyone would have done it." "That is not true," Lyra said. "Most humans fear Valari, and Valari fear humans. Our histories have been difficult." "Maybe," Ethan said, his voice low. But fear doesn't have to decide everything. The storm outside suddenly intensified. The hull groaned under the pressure. Ethan quickly stood, checking the structural monitors on a nearby screen. "The outer layer is holding," he said. "Still good." Lyra watched him walk around the cockpit with practiced steps. There was something strong about him, not strength in muscles but strength in heart. He had been hurt by life, yet he still cared enough to save a stranger. She wondered how long he had been alone. Hours later, the storm finally weakened. Ethan stepped outside, first, to check the ship's exterior. The wind pushed against him, but the sand had stopped rising in thick clouds. The sky remained gray, but visibility was much better. After inspecting the hull, he returned inside. "Good news. The storm buried the landing gear, but the structure is fine. Once I finish repairing the primary thruster, we can lift out." Lyra nodded, relieved. "And the navigation? I can restore emergency coordinates," he said. "But the main star drive needs a new crystal coil. Without that, long-distance jumps are impossible." Lyra frowned. "Crystal coils grow naturally only in the cliffs of Rinmar. But those cliffs are dangerous, and the path is long." Ethan lifted his bag. "Then we go together when you're strong enough." Lyra blinked. "You would accompany me? Your ship can't take off properly without it," Ethan said simply. "And you can't carry a crystal coil alone. They're heavy." Lyra looked at him with a strange warmth. "You keep helping me even when your job is already done." "My job is not done," he said. "Not until your ship flies again." She smiled for the first time since waking up, a soft, almost shy expression that made Ethan pause for a second. 2 more hours passed while he finished major repairs. Lyra moved slowly around the ship, trying to regain her strength. When she passed near Ethan, she studied the way he worked. Gentle hands, careful attention, quiet determination. She admired that, but what struck her most was that he never complained. Not about the heat. Not about exhaustion. Not about the danger. He simply worked. As evening approached, Ethan finally stopped and sat against the wall, stretching his tired arms. Lyra approached him, hesitating slightly. "You should rest," she said softly. "You have pushed yourself too much." He shrugged. "I'm used to long repairs." "But you are not a machine," Lyra replied. Ethan looked up at her. Her voice held something new: concern. Real concern. She sat beside him, careful not to lean too heavily against the wall. "When you repaired my ship, you repaired more than metal. You gave me hope again." He swallowed, unsure how to respond. Lyra continued, her voice softer. "Back home, they call me a diplomatic navigator, but what they truly mean is someone who brings peace. Yet I have never felt peace inside myself. Not until now." Ethan looked at her with quiet surprise. "Why?" "Because you treat me like a person," she said. "Not a symbol. Not an alien. Not someone fragile. Just someone who needs help." Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. He had helped many people in his past, but no one had looked at him like this. No one had spoken to him with such gentle, honest emotion. He felt exposed, yet comforted. Lyra's expression softened further. "There is hurt in you, Ethan. I see it. I do not know the story behind it, but I promise, you are not alone right now." He turned away, staring at the dim lights on the ceiling. "I don't want to burden anyone with my past." "You are not a burden," she answered firmly. "And I will stay until you believe that." The words sank into him slowly, like warmth melting ice he carried for years. The storm finally ended completely by nightfall. A soft silence spread across the desert. The stars appeared one by one through the cracked windows, glittering above the dunes. Ethan stood up. "I'll keep watch for raiders tonight. They move after storms." Lyra shook her head gently. "You saved me. Let me help now." She placed her hand on the glowing console. "The ship will alert us if anything approaches. There is no need to stay awake." Her eyes softened again. "Sit with me. Rest. Just for a little while." Ethan hesitated. but something in her voice made resistance impossible. He sat beside her near the cockpit window. The stars outside shimmered like dust sprinkled over the sky. Lyra leaned slightly against the seat, her breathing now steady and calm. "Do you ever stop wandering?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," he answered. "I stopped having a destination a long time ago." "Then make one now," she whispered. "Fix my ship. Bring me to the cliffs. Help me restore the Arhelion fully. Stay until you wish to leave. I would like that." He turned toward her slowly. Her eyes reflected the stars, soft and warm. "I don't know what I'm looking for anymore," Ethan admitted. Lyra smiled gently. "Maybe you do. You just haven't said it yet." Their eyes held each other's for a long, calm moment. Not romantic, but deeply human. Two lonely hearts finding something they did not expect: comfort, understanding, and a connection forming quietly in the shadows of a broken ship. Outside, the desert cooled. Inside, the distance between them grew smaller. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Tomorrow, we go for the crystal coil, and tomorrow," Lyra said softly, "I help heal whatever you hide behind your silence." For the first time in years, Ethan felt a small spark inside him: hope. It wasn't loud, it wasn't bright, but it was real, and Lyra noticed it. Their journey had only begun,